Most people think the biggest risk with OpenDoor is getting a lowball offer. But what I found out, especially here in Knoxville, Tennessee, is that the risk isn't the number that they give you up front, but more so it's what that number turns into later. A homeowner called me not too long ago, maybe just a couple of months ago, and she thought that she was selling her house for $250,000 to Nextdoor. That was the offer that she accepted from them. But by the time that she reviewed the offer and the final agreement, after the fees, after the repair credits, and a few line items that she didn't really understand nor expect, her net price dropped closer to $205 after all was said and done. And here's the part that most sellers won't ever realize, is that that adjustment was not just a one-off. I'm seeing it more and more, especially with out-of-state tech buyers who rely on algorithms to price homes and use their big fancy spreadsheets to calculate repair costs. So if you're thinking about selling your house fast in Knoxville and OpenDoor is on your radar, then this video is for you. I'm Molly with Cash on My Home, and I've been buying homes all across East Tennessee and North Georgia since 2017. And I've seen exactly how these iBuyers operate, especially since they've been gaining such traction right here in East Tennessee and in Knoxville. So let's talk about what it really means to sell to OpenDoor and what they don't always mention in the ad. So what or who is OpenDoor exactly? I've even had someone ask me, what does OpenDoor mean in real estate? Which is a fair question because at first glance, it's not totally clear what the company does or exactly who they represent. They market themselves as a simple way to sell your house with no showings, no agents, and a fast closing. You go online, you type in your address, and then boom, an instant offer shows up in your inbox. But here's what a lot of people don't understand is that OpenDoor is not gonna be your local cash home buyer. Even though they may send someone out to view your property, OpenDoor is pretty much a large tech company. And that offer that you get, it's generated by a computer algorithm, not someone who's actually walked your property or who understands the Knoxville market in and out. And after that, they start laying in their service fees, repair costs, and other deductions that can eventually knock off tens and thousands of your bottom line, pivoting the home to the price that they actually wanted and the one that they really wanted to pay. And it's not that they're trying to scam you or they're trying to inherently just lie to you. It's just that their home buying model works this way. And the company is geared to buy homes in a large volume, not necessarily accommodate individual selling situations. So that homeowner I mentioned that gave us a call a few months ago, the one who received that $250,000 cash offer from OpenDoor, did she sell her house? No, she didn't. Well, at least not to OpenDoor. Initially to her, it seemed like a really solid deal. But when reviewing their final purchase agreement, she noticed that there was a 5% service fee, a repair estimate, and other deductions, boiling her net down closer to $205. So when she called us, she had already backed out of her agreement with OpenDoor, and she felt uneasy about the final numbers, and she just said she couldn't get a straight answer from anyone over there. We stepped in and assessed her property as is and gave her a clean cash offer for $212 at the end of the day. There were no fees, zero, no commissions, and we did close in under 25 days, which worked fairly well for her situation. That's when she told me something that really stuck with me since then. She said, I just wanted to deal with someone local who actually can come to the house, not a company in another state reading off some real estate script. And she didn't need perfection. She wanted to feel like someone was actually listening to her, someone who was actually present and not trying to fit her house into some national home buying formula. And honestly, that's what we hear from a lot of people. They're not just selling a house, they're trying to solve a problem, right? And they're trying to solve that problem and they want to work with someone who actually gets that problem or is willing to understand where they're coming from, and ideally someone who actually cares. And to be fair, OpenDoor isn't doing anything necessarily shady. That's just the way that their model is built. And the key is this: don't just look at the top line offer, look at the fees, look at what your net is after those fees, repairs, and timelines that they've written in. Look at what that net price is gonna be, because that's actually what you're gonna be selling for and what you're actually gonna be walking away with. So does OpenDoor really buy houses, or are they just a one large conglomerate company scooping up houses behind a computer somewhere in God knows where? Well, OpenDoor does buy houses, but not in the way that a local buyer would. They're not showing up to walk your property, they're not pulling comps from your zip code by hand, and they're definitely not calling the title company to sort through liens or inherited paperwork if that is applicable to your case. OpenDoor is a massive publicly traded tech company that's buying homes at a large scale. They buy all over the country and they make offers using a software, an algorithm that scans data, runs it through their buy box, and spits out a number. Then if the home fits in their criteria, they'll either purchase it and resell the property, potentially assign it to another buyer, or back out if something doesn't fit their buy model that they find out later on during escrow. So yeah, they do buy homes, but it's by a system. And you're not working with a person most of the time. You're working with some outside representative, and they're typically looking for homes that are cookie cutter, move-in ready, and they don't want to have to deal with any repairs if possible. So if your home doesn't fit their algorithm or their buy box, then their system may not even know what to do with the home. So let's talk about something I see trip up people all the time, assuming the highest offer is the best offer. And actually, we just made a video about this, which you can watch over here. So let's say you get a $250,000 offer and another one at $220,000. And on paper, it feels like a no-brainer, right? You go with the $250,000 offer. I mean, who wouldn't accept that offer? It's higher and you're gonna make more money. But what a lot of homeowners don't realize is that in cash sales, especially with companies like OpenDoors or a lot of other big institutional players or buyers here in Tennessee, there can be a big difference between the offer amount and your actual net proceeds. So that 5% service fee, that's $12,500 gone right there if you're selling your home for $250,000. Then you may have a $10K or even $15K repair adjustment based on their walkthrough or inspection once they actually see your house. So that first initial offer that you get online or that you've got emailed to you, 90% of the time, it is just a come on in price. And on the other hand, a local buyer may offer you $240,000, but they know that that number is solid because they understand the market. They have hopefully bought hundreds of homes in this area and not hundreds of homes a month. And so this home makes financial sense for them. We've spoken with enough homeowners to know that OpenDoor doesn't have any hidden fees, but there are costs that come with selling your house to OpenDoor. So let's go ahead and break them down in all transparency so you know exactly what you're dealing with if you choose to sell your house to OpenDoor. Number one is the service fee. OpenDoor typically charges a 5% service fee, which is basically their version of a commission. It's how they make money on the sale, just like a realtor would. Number two is repair costs or credits. After they assess your home, OpenDoor will often ask you for repairs or issue a credit or ask for a credit. Even though you're still selling as is, these deductions can vary. It's not uncommon to see 10 to 15K subtracted from your purchase price, depending on your home's condition. So if your home needs major repairs, they're gonna make a point to carve that into their offer. And here's another question I hear in the home selling community. Can you negotiate with OpenDoor as a seller? Well, technically, yes, you can certainly try. OpenDoor's offer is generated by a software, as we mentioned, using recent sales data. And while you can submit photos and details to ask for a higher price, stating your case, there's typically not a ton of flexibility for them. You're basically like negotiating with the algorithm or a system, not a person. Same goes for repairs. If they deduct $15K for repairs after their assessment, you can dispute those numbers. But again, you're just often emailing a rep who has not actually seen your house, and you're not having a discussion with someone who actually physically knows what your house looks like. So sure, you can push back, but don't accept much. It's certainly not like dealing with a local buyer. So let me clear something up. OpenDoor isn't a scam technically. No, I'm just kidding. OpenDoor is definitely not a scam, but OpenDoor is a legitimate home buying company that does operate in Knoxville. They've got a national footprint, and in some cases, they actually do what they say. They offer a streamlined, hassle-free way to sell your house fast for cash, but most especially if your house is in great shape, if it's move-in ready, updated, and it's in a newer subdivision with no major issues, and if you don't mind paying for those service fees and those convenience fees, OpenDoor may be a legitimate option for you. But it's important to understand what they are and what they are not. So OpenDoor is by no means a local home buyer. They're not someone who's gonna walk your property. They're not gonna meet you at the kitchen table, and they're most likely not gonna help you navigate lien issues, probate issues, code enforcement, bad tenants, or anything that could be affecting your situation. They are a large tech company, and they are driven by numbers. So that means that their process is largely automated, which means that their initial offer is generated by a software, as we've discussed. Communication often will go through call centers. Decisions about pricing or repair deductions are made by analysts who may be in a different state. So you're not getting a custom solution necessarily. You're you're getting a system. And for some people, that's totally fine. You know, if you've got the time and you're not in a rush and the property fits their model, then you're gonna be okay with trading a little bit of equity for that hands-off streamlining experience. But if your house isn't perfect, if it's got deferred maintenance, if it has inheritance or probate issues, if there are tenants that are currently living in there, or anything out of the ordinary, you're most likely going to run into one of two problems. And that's going to be they're going to reduce the price or offer significantly after inspections, or they're just going to back out altogether if the property does not meet their buy box once they have gotten that inspection. OpenDoor isn't a scam, but it's also not a one-size-fits-all option. Just make sure their system fits your situation before you commit to working with them. Another question that we often get is, can you back out of an OpenDoor contract? And yeah, you can actually back out of a contract. In most cases, OpenDoor allows sellers to cancel their agreement at any point before closing, and there are usually no cancellation fees. They build that flexibility into their model, which sounds great on the surface for you, but if you've already gone through the repair assessment, the whole process resets if you decide to sell elsewhere and come back to them later, which could in turn mean them giving you a lower price at that point. And during the time that your home was under contract with them, which could be weeks to up to months, it's been off the market, which means that you may have lost valuable time if you were trying to move quickly or time your house appropriately with the market. So while yes, you can walk away from them, you want to do it sooner rather than later if you feel like something's off or the numbers don't make sense. And always, always, always read the fine print before signing anything, because even a flexible contract can mess up your timeline. So how do you actually sell your house to OpenDoor? Well, it starts online, no surprise there. You know, just hit opendoor.com and you're gonna go ahead and type in your property address. And within minutes, usually they send you what they call a instant offer. It sounds great, right? But again, as we discussed, that number, it's not based off of anyone seeing your home yet. It's based off on an algorithm, recent home sales, and what their system thinks your home is worth, which for me is not a solid number yet. If that number looks good, then you're gonna move on to the next step with them. So you're gonna let them know that, hey, I like that number that you threw out to me. And that's when they're gonna actually schedule either a virtual or an in-person walkthrough where they're taking photos, they're checking the condition, and they're tallying up things that need repairs. And so that's when the numbers usually will start to shift with them. Once all of that's done, then you're gonna get their final offer minus their 5% service fee and any repair credits and any standard seller costs like title, escrow, HOA, transfer fees, or closing costs. And if you're good with all of that, then you sign the contract, and assuming nothing unexpected pops up, then they'll usually close within 2 to 4 weeks. But keep in mind, you're working with the system, not a person. So if the numbers change or something does pop up during title, there is no guarantee that they're gonna work it through with you, and they could back away completely scotch-free. So is it worth selling your house for cash to OpenDoor? Honestly, it really depends. You know, I do know homeowners that have sold their house to OpenDoor, and I've spoke with a lot who haven't and decided to work with us instead. You know, if your home is in excellent condition and if you've got the time to wait and you don't mind giving a little bit of equity in exchange for that convenience, yeah, it could totally work for you. But if your house needs repairs, if you're dealing with a tough situation like a rental or bad tenants, or maybe you're facing foreclosure and you need to move quickly, working with someone local who actually understands the market may be the better move for you. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I hope it gave you some insight on whether you choose to sell your house to OpenDoor or not. My name is Molly, once again with Cash Out of My Home, and we've bought over 350 homes here in the southeast of Tennessee as well as North Georgia since 2017. If you need any home selling help, I'd be happy to help you. Please just reach out to us. Our information is below, and we'll see you on the next video.